Hi viewers, welcome to this session on the process of planning a lesson. What seems to be common to all teaching is the need for meticulous planning and pacey lessons that sweep the children along. Hyman 2005. Planning a lesson is an art and a science. With a thorough understanding of the objectives and content, the classroom teacher has to agree with the principles of planning, teaching and evaluation. At the same time, a lesson plan reflects the creativity and potential of the planner, the unique teacher. When it comes to an experienced teacher, the quality and amount of the wealth of resources that he or she possesses will aid his or her dynamic planning. For the beginner, the techniques to adapt to the real situation will have to be mastered to play the game beautifully. The philosophy of the teacher as well as that of the subject forms the base for planning. The personal characteristics of the teacher, like the beliefs, interests, values, creativity, attitude and problem-solving ability, also determine the strategy and style of planning. A beginner teacher must be imaginative in that he has to mentally walk through the plan prior to its execution. During this mental planning, he could locate points of excitement, points of difficulties, unforeseen doubts and odd errors, and could have a pre-plan on the way to eradicate them. This will help in systematically organizing the process, resources and the interactive classroom contexts. A well thought out learned beginning, a flying start, will help develop confidence in the practicing teacher. Efficiency in planning. To ensure that all the learners acquire language, the English teacher has to think from the perspectives of both the teacher and the learner. Tolley and others 1996 have enlisted some useful tips for perfect planning. From the perspective of the teacher, the lesson should be planned to be purposeful, well structured, flexible, varied in terms of accommodating different learning styles, well resourced with resources being used effectively, well paced, dynamic, challenging, expecting high standards of student achievement, creating a good learning atmosphere capable of conveying a sense of achievement. From the perspective of the learner, the lesson plan should involve active learning, be purposeful, give opportunity for independent thinking and imagination, be used to acquire knowledge, understanding and skills, be enjoyable and satisfying, establishing confidence and standards, clearly indicating continuous development, alter learners' ways of thinking. Different types of lessons. In the planning of a lesson, the nature of the lesson plays a vital role. There can be informative lessons, skill lessons and appreciation lessons. The objectives, the content, the learning process and the evaluation also will differ considerably. For example, through an informative lesson or knowledge lesson, the primary objective of acquisition of linguistic elements is aimed at, while through a skill-based lesson, the development of psychomotor domains through application of language forms in real listening, speaking, reading and writing process is the primary objective. Appreciation lessons aim at enriching the affective domain through imagination, recitation and creative works of art. Let us see the general format of a skill-based lesson and an appreciation lesson. Skill-based lesson. A skill-based lesson aims at forming and developing skills of listening, speaking, reading and writing, preferably in integration. Life-related linguistic situations are developed and the learners actively engage in meaningful communication through turn-taking. The process as well as the product are important. The stages involved in a skill lesson are: Stage 1, Presentation. Learners must feel the necessity of acquiring a skill. Based on the nature of the skill to be developed, appropriate technique of introduction can be adopted. Field visit, demonstration, use of learning resources, realistic and mock situations can be used as effective means of presentation. Stage 2, Statement of aim and objective. To make all the learners involved in the process, they should be quite clear as to what skill they are going to acquire. Therefore, the objective of the particular task must be stated. Stage 3, Presentation and statement of rules. The learners may be given opportunity to listen to communicative situations, preferably authentic materials. If any linguistic elements, styles or expressions are to be highlighted, the same may be brought to the attention of the listeners. Rules of use, if any, may also be explained by the teacher. Stage 4, Practice. Learners are given opportunity to develop and practice similar tasks. If needed, teacher provides guidance. The task may be done in groups or individually. Adequate time for preparation and presentation must be ensured. Stage 5, Editing and refinement. The teacher actively intervenes and helps the learners make corrections and makes them acquire the objective of the task through repeated practice. Appreciation lesson. The ability to enjoy the beauty in specific work of art, literature and music is a basic characteristic of human mental life. Development of such mental abilities is related to the affective domain of learning. It is mainly through language arts that such feelings and emotions could be nourished. A lesson of appreciation is an invitation to look at or to listen to something beautiful with leisure, to enjoy it in a favorable atmosphere, and with the teacher's use of suggestion to heighten its appeal. Smith and Harrison. The learner understands and appreciates the beauty through form, sound and theme. Based on the level of appreciation, nature of content, material and the potential of learners, the lesson has to proceed. The two stages common to appreciation lessons are: Stage 1, Presentation. The teacher should consider himself as the real author and should use devices to stimulate learners' imagination. For example, a poem may be recited, a picture to be shown and a piece of music to be presented to the class. It means that the presenter need not paraphrase, explain or bring out the rhyme scheme. Let the learners pass comments, explain, discuss, feel the poem and thus appreciate it from their perspective. Stage 2, Practice and Creation. Different types of activities for appreciation are provided. The objectives are set according to the capacity and interest of the learners, and a stimulating environment free from noise and other distractions is ensured. Vocabulary items and other expressions which may intervene with comprehension must have to be clarified to enable the learner appreciate and create his own items. Goal and general objectives of language teaching and learning. The English language learner is to be equipped with the command of the language. The language should allow him to express himself in speech or in writing in a variety of contexts. Communication is of course the aim of language learning. Thus, the aim of teaching English is to make the learner an effective user of the language. In order to achieve this distant aim, certain immediate goals or objectives are to be realized. These general objectives at secondary level are: the learner comprehends English when it is spoken at normal conversational speed. Listening. Speaks English with fluency, accuracy and appropriateness. speaking. Reads English with comprehension at a reasonable speed, reading. Writes English neatly and correctly, writing. Acquires knowledge of the elements of English for practical command of the language. Appreciates poetic language and develops positive attitude towards language. Objectives. An objective is a desired change in behavior in a person that we try to bring about through education, e.g. first. A real-world objective describes a task which learners might wish to carry out outside the classroom. A teacher is always concerned first with the pedagogic objective which describes a task that the learner will undergo in the classroom. The realization of pedagogic objectives will automatically lead to the real world objectives. As an example, take the case of a learner practiced in listening to recorded speeches in English in the classroom. This will help him listen and comprehend speeches in English in real life also. Pedagogic objective indicates the dimension of learning, worthwhileness of a pattern of learning for realizing it, and the level of learning to be attempted. Worthwhileness of pattern means that it must be practical under existing conditions and must be attainable. It should be based on learners' readiness, maturation, capacity and the nature of content. There can be different strata of objectives. Overall objectives, stage-wise objectives, that is primary, secondary, grade-wise, that is standard 8, standard 9, subject-wise, unit-wise and lesson-wise objective. Curricular objectives related to language form. The curricular objectives carry the content, process skills, learning technique and the product to be evaluated. They are stated in simple sentences from the perspective of the learner. Based on the curricular objectives, course books have been designed. A few such objectives related to poetry and prose lessons are: poem, to enable the learner listen and recite poems, appreciate rhythm and feeling, collect similar poems, write a few poetic lines, collect poems with similar rhythmic pattern, appreciate the beauty of the poem, internalize the values and message of the poem. Prose lesson, to enable the learner listen to short speeches, narratives and commentaries. Take notes on the lesson text, enjoy puzzles and riddles, express ideas in one's own way, take part in seminars and discussions, present pieces of dialogue, dramatize situations, express ideas selecting the appropriate words and structures, read and understand short essays, understand messages, advertisements and brochures, compile a small dictionary, suggest appropriate titles, expand an idea, prepare reports, etc. These curricular objectives are derived from the sub-skills to be developed based on the 4 language skills as well as study skills. Pedagogic objectives can be a process objective or a product objective. Process objective describes not what learners will do as a result of instruction, but the experiences that the learner will undergo in the classroom. A process-oriented syllabus provides the process through which knowledge and skills might be gained. Processes are dynamic, contextualized, internal and they develop over a period of time. Through variety classroom tasks, different process objectives are realized. They stimulate language acquisition. The sub-skills related to listening, speaking, reading and writing are the process skills to be acquired by the language learner. Product-oriented syllabus focus on the knowledge and skills which learners should gain as a result of instruction. The expected outcomes are stated as product objectives. They are effected through a series of process objectives. Classroom tasks also carry product objectives which are based on the resultant or outcome of the processes that the learners undergo. Specific objectives. The objectives related to topic or subunit which is to be completed within one period are labeled as specific objectives. These objectives will be set by the teacher taking into account the context variables related to the learner, content and learning resources. Specific objectives are clear and definite with respect to the linguistic elements of vocabulary, grammatical or functional items, linguistic styles and expressions. They expand to the skill of listening, speaking, reading and writing and the other domains of development, cognitive, affective and psychomotor. A behavioral objective is focused on specific observable or measurable goal in people learning, a minimum level of attainment for deciding whether or not the desired learning has been achieved. Jerokimek and Foster. The statement describes the conditions for such behavioral change. It also carries the technique to determine whether a certain level of attainment has occurred. Action verbs are used to denote these specific outcomes of learning, SOL. Clause has enlisted such specific behaviors. Taxonomy of educational objectives. Educational goals are always broad and are formulated with futuristic vision on the development of a nation and the world at large. They are the goals of the scheme of all the work during a period of education. An educational goal has a statement of how a student differs at the end of the course from what he was in the beginning. It defines what the learner learns apart from what he is taught. On the other hand, instructional or general objectives with respect to disciplines have immediate intent and they specify the learning outcome sharply. The general objectives are even sharpened into specific objectives by the classroom teacher depending on the context. There are two types of specific objectives, behavioral and non-behavioral. Dr. Benjamin S. Bloom and others developed the taxonomy of educational objectives in 1956. Learning meant the development of three domains: cognitive, which is the domain of intellectual activities and mental skills; affective, which represents growth in feeling or emotions; psychomotor, which represents development of manual or physical skills. Action verbs, which are the specific behavioral changes that occur during each of the objectives corresponding to these three domains, were also listed out. Later, Bloom's taxonomy was revised by Lauren Anderson, Rathole and others in 2000. The three domains of development remain the same. New Bloom's taxonomy for foreign language, developed by Anderson and Rathole, presents accurately the level of thinking involved in cognitive development, the action verbs and also some of the input-based activities. The new Bloom's taxonomy and foreign language instruction. Level of thinking. Remember, lowest level, retrieving, recognizing and recalling relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Key question is, can the student recall or remember the information? Verb examples are arrange, define, label, list, match, memorize, name, order, recall, recognize, repeat, reproduce, restate, state. Examples of comprehensible input-based activities. Answer questions that begin with who, what, when, where, if the answer is explicitly given in a story. Match characters to action or dialogue. Information gap questions. true or false, either or statements, match language to vocabulary to English. Understand. Constructing meaning from oral, written and graphic messages. The key question is, can the student explain ideas or concepts? Verb examples are classify, compare, describe, discuss, explain, express, give examples, give main idea, infer, interpret, paraphrase, report, review, select, summarize and translate. Examples of comprehensible input based activities are summarize a story in own words, restate main idea of story, explain why a character in a story does, says something when answer was stated in the story, describe a person or place in the story, translate text aloud to English. Apply. Carrying out or using a procedure. Key question. Can the student use the information in a new way? Verb examples are apply, choose, demonstrate, dramatize, execute, illustrate, implement, interpret, outline, point out, role play, show, sketch, solve, use. Examples of comprehensible input based activities are act out novel commands, rewrite a story from a different point of view, POV, act out a story, draw a story. Analyze. Breaking material into constituent parts, determining how the parts relate to one another and to an overall structure or purpose. Key question. Can the student distinguish between the different parts? Verb examples are analyze, apprise, attribute, break down, calculate, categorize, compare, contrast, differentiate, discriminate, dissect, distinguish, examine, organize, question, test. Examples of comprehensible input based activities. Answer why or open-ended questions when answer is indirectly stated or implied in a story. Break down the main actions of the story. Use a Venn diagram to compare and contrast characters, situations, countries, cultures, schools, etc. Evaluate, making judgments based on criteria and standards. Key question. Can the student justify a stand or a decision? Verb examples are argue, apprise, assess, critic, check, conclude, compare, criticize, defend, estimate, evaluate, judge, justify, predict, rate, select, support, value. Examples of comprehensible input based activities. Evaluate appropriate or inappropriate actions of characters, compare culture, predict what will happen next, make inferences. Design, the highest level, putting elements together to form a coherent or functional whole, reorganizing elements into a new pattern. Key question is, can the student create a new product or point of view? Verb examples are assemble, combine, compile, compose, create, construct, design, develop, devise, formulate, generate, invent, organize, plan, prepare, produce, propose, reconstruct, revise, rewrite, write. Examples of comprehensible input based activities are create and give novel commands, write an original story, compose a class story, invent new details for a story, generate or invent answers to hypothetical questions, rewrite a story adding details and or characters that were not in the original. The levels and action words related to affective domain are summarized as levels: Receiving phenomenon. Action. Develops awareness, shows willingness to hear, shows selected attention. Responding to phenomena. Actions are attends and reacts to phenomenon. Valuing. Actions are accepts, getting committed to internalizing values. Organization. Organizes values into priorities, creates unique value system. Characterization. The actions are internalizes values that control personal and social behavior. Simpson 1972 developed the levels of psychomotor domain involving physical movement, coordination and motor skills. The 7 levels and actions are perception, ability to use sensory cues to guide motor activities. Set, readiness to act. Guided response, imitation, trial and error. Mechanism, habit formation. Complex overt response, skillful performance of motor activity. Adaptation, modification of motor acts according to situation. Organization, creating new environment pattern. Format of lesson plan. Preliminary details. Details of the class, subject, unit, topic, date and duration. Learning objectives. List of appropriate curricular objectives and specific process objectives related to language elements. Thematic objectives. The process. The starter. An interactive session or an activity especially for listening which will help the learner remember or recall previous experiences, skill or knowledge which is related to the new topic. The stimulus. Teacher connects the new topic with the established prerequisite. The learner is now ready to receive the new topic. Listening. The learner gets a chance to listen to the new content which is presented live or recorded. An investigation. The learner needs and tries to understand the textual content and locates points of difficulty with respect to language or theme. Breaking the hampers. Learners try to clarify their doubts through group or peer discussion. If not solved, they megaphone the doubt to the teacher. Teacher can provide either contexts or activities at this stage. If contexts are provided, a minimum of 3 to be provided. If activity, give the following details of the selected activity. Activity, objective, introduction, context, grouping strategy, product, expected problem, additional activity, expected time. Contemplating activity. Learners develop answers to the comprehension questions. Specific questions are to be listed here. Any type of activities may be given which will give the learner a chance for application and analysis of the linguistic elements, and the theme of the content can be given. Refining the thoughts. The product of the previous activity is refined either by peers or by the teachers, and the edited version is written in their notebooks. Creative time. Learners are given chance to create language in speaking or writing using their expenditure vocabulary and grammar. Assignment. Items which will give the learners chance to apply, analyze, evaluate and create original language and which are related to the text can be given. In the product sheet, the responses from the learners based on the already set objectives are listed here after the implementation of the plan. Areas of difficulties and deviations also are listed for treatment in the next plan. Now, let us summarize the session. Meaningful and effective lesson planning is to be practiced by beginning teachers. As a prerequisite, knowledge of the essential and characteristic features of a plan is to be developed. In this module, the learner has been presented with the themes of types of lesson plans, aims and objectives of teaching English as a second language. revised version of Bloom's Taxonomy of Objectives for Foreign Language Instruction will guide the novice teacher develop his own lesson plans. The format of lesson plan provided will serve as a model. Before we end the session, try this following questions. How does a skill-based lesson in English differ from an appreciation lesson? Distinguish between process objectives and product objectives. Briefly explain the aim and types of objectives of learning English as a second language. List the levels of thinking related to new Bloom's taxonomy as presented by Anderson. Here are some books for your reference. 1 out of 10 from Downing Street Version to Classroom Reality by P. Heyman 2005, Vintage, London. Workbook 2, Beginning Initial Teacher Training by H. Tolley, M. Vidulip and T. Fisher, 1996, Criskington, Cambridge. Hope you enjoyed the session. See you next time. Till then, bye.